ARTmakers was made possible by the San Luis Obispo County Office of Education, Studios on the Park in Paso Robles, and the Arts Collaborative.
Hello, ARTmakers. I'm Jessamine Pattison, and we are here at Studios on the Park in Paso Robles, where you can find all different kinds of artwork. Take a look at this print. It's called In Italian and was painted in 1983 by Jean-Michel Basquiat. It's rich in symbolism, colors, and text. His painting approach invites you to think about the work's complexity and meaning. Today we will learn about Basquiat's art and style, which will be our inspiration for our own art project. Let's get started, ARTmakers! Jean-Michel Basquiat was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1960. His family had a multicultural background, with his mother's side originating from Puerto Rico and his father immigrating from Haiti. Jean-Michel Basquiat showed a passion for art from a very early age. As a child, Basquiat would often spend many hours painting and drawing using any materials that he could find. From crayons to discarded cardboard boxes, Basquiat could make extraordinary works of art out of ordinary objects. He would explore the streets of New York City, taking in the vibrant graffiti and street art that surrounded him. Inspired by the energy and creativity of the city, Basquiat began to develop his own unique style. He used vibrant colors and bold brushstrokes to express his emotions and tell powerful stories through his artwork. Jean-Michel Basquiat was just in his early 20s when he was noticed by gallery owners and art collectors in New York. At that time, an art movement was growing around the world called Neo-Expressionism. Neo-Expressionist artworks are characterized by intensely expressive subjectivity. What does that mean? If you're being objective, your artwork is not influenced by your own feelings or opinions. Expressive subjectivity is the opposite. You are making art that expresses your personal beliefs and emotions. Neo-expressionist artists want you to stop and ask, what is being communicated? What does this mean? Neo-expressionist artists often paint with lots of texture and rough brushstrokes. Neo-expressionist artworks usually have vividly contrasting colors, primitive figures, and other abstract objects. One of the fun aspects of Basquiat's art is his use of symbolism. These symbols are a visual language he uses to communicate ideas and his personal experiences. For example, the three-pointed crown has meaning. One interpretation of the crown in Basquiat's work is the theme of power and success. The crown is a symbol of his goal to be accepted and successful in the art world. In other words, a crowning achievement. The dollar sign, on the other hand, reflects Basquiat's thoughts about the power of art galleries and collectors who decide what is art and how much it is worth. He is challenging the belief that art is a luxury item only available to the wealthy. The skull, often depicted with prominent teeth and empty eyes, symbolizes mortality and the fleeting nature of life. Basquiat's fascination with skulls can be traced back to his childhood when he was exposed to the concept of death at an early age. He was hit by a car when he was 8 years old while playing baseball in the street. His arm was broken and he suffered several internal injuries requiring him to stay in the hospital for a month. To help him pass the time, his mother gave him a book called Gray's Anatomy, a medical reference book on the human body. Gray's Anatomy inspired Basquiat's drawings of people, which often show both the inside and outside of bodies. The repetition of the car in his work indicates the subject held a personal meaning for him. The skull serves as a reminder of our own mortality and the fragility of human existence. He loved to read and he liked to play with words. He purposely used incorrect spellings and crossed out and repeated words and phrases. He said, "I cross out words so you will see them more." Basquiat's color palette is vibrant and bold with a wide range of hues. Bright yellows, blues, reds, and greens create a visual spectacle that draws attention. The colors reflect his emotions, with fiery reds representing passion and energy, while cooler blues evoke a sense of sadness or reflection. Basquiat's mastery of color adds depth and intensity, drawing us further into his world. Music was very important to him too. He loved many different styles, from the jazz records his father played to hip-hop, reggae, and disco. Basquiat listened to music while he painted and often included images of musicians, instruments, and song lyrics in his work. For several years, he collaborated with another famous artist, Andy Warhol. In 1993, the powerful words of African-American poet and civil rights activist Maya Angelou were blended with the brave imagery of Jean-Michel Basquiat to create the children's book, Life Doesn't Frighten Me. Basquiat's paintings have themes that resonate with viewers on a personal and societal level. Themes of identity, race, cultural heritage, power, and mortality are often in his work. He managed to complete more than 2,000 drawings and paintings during his short career. 3 of his works have made impressive sales in recent years. The Nile sold for $67 million in 2023. In this case, brought in $93 million in 2021. Another piece, simply called Untitled, sold for more than $110 million in 2017. Basquiat's impact on the art world was significant, as he rose from being a street artist to achieving international recognition. His work brought attention to issues of race and identity. Basquiat's style paved the way for future generations of artists to explore their own voices and challenge traditional beliefs of what constitutes art. Hello and welcome to ARTmakers. We are here at Studios on the Park in Paso Robles, and today we will be making a project inspired by Jean-Michel Basquiat. I just wanted to introduce you to the project. My name is Jessamine Pattison, and I'm glad to be here with you today. Basquiat is one of my favorite artists. He's a little less well-known than some of the other artists we've been doing, but he, like many artists, was inspired by his childhood, and one of the main things that you can notice in Basquiat's artworks are his skeletons and drawings of bodies. So when he was a young child, he got in a car accident. He was hit by a car while he was playing baseball, and his mom brought him this really cool book that you can go check out too, called Gray's Anatomy. He got really fascinated by all the body parts, and a lot of times you can see the insides of bodies as well as the outsides of bodies in his artwork. I thought today maybe we could make a piece of artwork that expresses our emotions, maybe uses a symbol like Basquiat, and uses the colors that you think that emotion can be expressed by. Some of the materials that you can use, these are maybe if you wanted to use all of the materials like I like to, but you could also just keep it really simple and use some watercolor. You could use the kind that comes just in a little pan, the kinds that are classroom watercolors, or you can get the kinds that are the tube, the artist quality watercolor. And just lay down a base of color. That's one thing that Basquiat liked to do, is have lots of color. So I have watercolor, I have my brushes, I have actually even some colored pencil, which I don't think that we've used so far in these projects, which is fun. I also have some newspaper because that was something he used. He used lots of text or words in his projects and laid down a bunch of images and then would use almost subtractive art with white acrylic paint. So this is just kids' classroom acrylic paint. And I don't know how much you know about paint, but acrylic and watercolor, you can use them together. You can't paint watercolor over acrylic, but you can paint acrylic over watercolor. So I'm just going to invite you to think of a memory or an emotion that you would like to express. I'm going to think of a memory that made me happy or sad or maybe frustrated or angry or joyous. And think about a color. Maybe if you were happy, was it a yellow color? If you were sad, was it blue, a cooler color? And if none of these things are coming to you, that's okay also. You can always do what Basquiat did and turn on some music and start painting what the music made him feel. In this example that I began with the other day, I put down newspaper. Underneath, I chose circles as a theme. And I don't know if you can see the body, but I made a body there with some skeleton and like an armature, the skeleton of the body. And then the head is actually a round newspaper clipping that I turned into a moon, but was actually a neuron, I think. So just being creative. And this was a more challenging project for me personally because I didn't draw or paint from observation. I had to draw or paint from experience and observation in my head. So if this feels more challenging to you, that's okay. And if not, maybe you like to draw and paint from your imagination more than drawing and painting from observation. So I also have some oil pastels. He used oil sticks and oil pastels, so I can draw underneath my watercolor or on top of my watercolor with these. I have a couple of palettes that I'm using to mix my paint. I have a fan in case I need to dry my artwork. You could also use a hair dryer. I have some glue in case you want to glue things down like the newspaper clippings. I have a palette knife. Have you ever seen one of these before? You can take acrylic paint and make quite broad and exciting, bold brush strokes or palette knife strokes with these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and use my watercolor that I laid down. And another thing that Basquiat used was symbols. So symbols are things that are images that might represent something else. So a heart, for example, can be a symbol of love or strength or family. They can actually mean whatever you want them to mean. A bird could be speaking about freedom. So today I'm going to make a heart with a crown. And for me, that symbolism or that symbol means maybe putting your heart or your feelings first. And they're also just things that I know how to draw that are pretty easy. The heart for me can symbolize family or love or my emotions or maybe even sadness. It can mean something to you that doesn't make sense to other people. So I'm going to start, and I have some kind of cool oil pastels. This one's gold. And I'm going to save that one for my crown, which Basquiat used a 3-pointed crown, which is kind of fun. He made his own symbol, or maybe he found it someplace. That's okay. He found objects, maybe he found symbols. But my heart, I'm going to make an outline. And this one's a little simpler than my other project. I probably spent a couple of hours on this one, and it depends on what level you're at, but you can challenge yourself and make a more complicated one or stick to a smaller one. I'm going to take my paintbrushes, get a little water, and color in my heart a little bit more. So this is my watercolor. As you can see, it's a little bit more watery because it's mostly just pigment, whereas acrylic is made up of different chemicals and not bad chemicals, but just chemicals that make it darker and bolder. So I can come back there. I might add a little extra red here. I can put some water on top. I'm going to dry off my paintbrush and let it sit here. I can also blot my watercolor if I need it to dry quicker. I'm going to draw some objects with my colored pencils while I wait for my heart to dry a little bit. I'm going to draw some feathers. That's one of the symbols I like to draw a lot in my art. And something to consider, Basquiat grew up in a city, and he depicted a lot of city scenes. You can find fire hydrants in his artwork. You can find policemen and firemen, lots of cityscapes, and you could consider, where did you grow up, or where are you growing up, and what are you surrounded by? What do you know best? What can you include in your art? So for me, my feathers are also kind of like leaves. You can make them feathers or leaves. Are they a feather or are they a leaf? I'm using cool colors to draw on top of the warm colors. Cool colors are the colors that remind you of the ocean or being cold. And warm colors are the colors like the sunshine or like also a heart. So then maybe I want to come to my newspaper and find either an image or a word that I would like to put into my artwork. And it doesn't even have to make sense for the artwork, but I'm just going to use this, the Song of the Nightingale I found. I want to put that in there because I like to sing. That makes me happy. That's in my heart. I'm going to put it there. I'm not sure where I'm going to glue it down yet. And then I also have, I just found underneath there, it says chirp. And for me, birds make me happy. I found the word fall. Okay. And then I can even just use words, and I think I'm going to make my own heart. I think if Basquiat were here today, he would say, don't worry about making a mistake, just express your feelings, and feelings aren't ever a mistake. Nobody else ever knows what your feelings are, only you are the one. So I think I'll put a heart inside my heart. I don't know what that means, but I like the way it looks. And glue down some of this stuff. Chirp. The Song of the Nightingale. I'm going to cut this more into the shape of a feather. I'm having fun. So Basquiat was of Puerto Rican and Haitian descent, and he listened to a lot of the jazz that his dad liked to listen to while he made art. And sometimes some of the words that were in the music would end up in his artwork also. So if you don't know what to do, you can always turn on music and listen to the words or even the musical notes, and maybe they'll make you think of something to draw. All right, I left space for my crown. Let's see, I'm just gonna draw my three-pointed crown here. Some questions I just keep asking myself are, what do I want to express in my painting? As well as what colors do I want to use, and do those colors express the feelings that I want to portray to my audience? The audience of artists or artworks are just the people who are looking at the artwork. So, and if you're making this with somebody, you could say, what does this make you think of? Because that's what neo-expressionists like to do. It's kind of like the beginning of a conversation, your art piece. Another option would be to read the book that Basquiat illustrated by Maya Angelou. It's talking about what he's afraid of, kind of what she's afraid of, but like they're saying they're not afraid of it. So you could actually put all the things that you're afraid of, and then I was thinking you could like paint over them with things that make you happy or that you're not actually afraid of. But once I'm at this point in my artwork, that's when we come through, and this part I find kind of fun, and you never know what it's gonna look like. until you start, but you take your white tempera paint, which you can paint over watercolor with, and then kind of make some different shapes or decide what things you want to stand out or to go back into the background. The things that I put white over will not show anymore, and then it will make the things that don't have white stand out. So maybe I want to really make this feather stand out, so I can paint my white over it. And the thicker I paint the white, the opacity, the opaqueness, I cannot see through it the more layers I put on. And that's something you know just from common sense, but the reason is because of the opacity. That's a pretty awesome art word. And let's see what it looks like to use my palette brush. I can take some big old glob of white here and smush it on and use it to make some more expressive strokes. I can also go back through and scribe or make some lines on the paint. This is one thing that's cool about acrylic paint. Because it's thicker, you can subtract some of the paint that you've laid down when it's thicker and see the underpainting, the painting that's underneath the acrylic. All right, what else here? I'm going to, so markers, if I wanted to, I should have put those down first and or after the watercolors dry. So I think it's pretty dry now, so I could also put some marker down, but you'll notice if you mark on wet paper, your marker will probably die. It will not work the next time you go to pick it up. So I'm just filling in some of my spaces here. And don't mark on your acrylic paint until it's done. And these are water-based markers, but there's permanent markers too. Something to ask your caretaker about, if it's okay to use a permanent marker. So kind of just, this is something you could also like paint, step away from, maybe go get a snack, go read the book written by Maya Angelou, the poem, and once it dries, you can add your finishing touches, which might be more acrylic paint or marker. You can take another look at Basquiat's art. That was very helpful for me, just to be inspired. And then ask yourself, is there anything else that I want to express in this artwork?
I gave you something to smile about, oh yeah, I gave you something, made you twist and shout, uh-huh.